Hey everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of Icons and Experts, brought to you twice a month in partnership with my friends over at the Extended Stay Lodging Association. Please check them out, ESLA.org. So every other week on this show, we're highlighting either a person who's had unmistakable impact on the hospitality industry, or we'll learn from experts on how to supercharge your extended stay business. On today's episode, we're featuring the amazing Peggy Berg. Most recently, you know her as founder and president of the Castell Project, which has since sold to the ESLA, and she's still over there, where she helps bring opportunity to others. But before that, she spent decades forging ahead and making change. In fact, she was the first female employee elected by the PKF partnership. And in 1989, she went on to found the Highland Group and successfully grew that organization to become a nationally recognized consulting firm focused on extended stay market years before anyone else heard of it. And it also, she's done everything. She's owned and operated hotels as a franchisee for brands like Hilton and Choice. She's also been honored as one of the 30 most influential women in hospitality by Hotel Management Magazine, plus so much more. Today, my co-host is Mark Skinner, who I first got to know when he was actually with the Highland Group with Peggy Berg. He and Peggy have known each other for a long, long time, which is completely evident from our conversation here that focuses on the detailed history of the extended stay hotel business and, of course, her incredible career. Presses. Stop the presses. All right, most of you don't understand that because nobody reads newspapers anymore. But that means we got some breaking news. I want to thank our friends over at Red Roof Franchising for last-minute support of this incredible video. They know how awesome Peggy is, and you will too. Please check them out. They've got the incredible Hometown Studios extended stay product. And while you're at it, why not do a dual-branded hotel with the Hometown Studios and a Red Roof Inn? Be sure to check out my friend Matt Hostetler. He's the Chief Development Officer over there at Red Roof. Find them at redrooffranchising.com, redrooffranchising.com. Okay, back to the chat. Today's episode is brought to us by Delasart Hospitality. You know them, the leader in third-party management for extended stay hotels for more than 22 years. And they're the only company out there offering 3 key services, whether together or separately. You got your full management, your remote sales support, and of course, remote revenue management services. Please do me a favor, check out them at delasart.com. That's delasart.com. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I sure had a great time putting it together. Thank you so much. See you next time. All right, please welcome, as I have just said, Mark Skinner, partner in the Highland Group, and Peggy Berg, industry advocate. Guys, it is so great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. I'm excited because, as I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about the history of extended stay. And there's 2 people I associate with extended stay more than everyone. And that just happens to be you 2 folks, because y'all were talking about extended stay when I was a newbie in the industry. I had no idea what was going on with that. So let's take it way back. Mark, the Highland Group, it's been around for quite the day. So let's go back to what you were thinking and how you saw early extended stay hotel brands back in like the 1980s to start with.
Well, I actually am going to defer to Peggy on that one, because I joined Peggy, who was the founder of the Highland Group. I joined in 1994.
Oh, and you started back in 1989, Peggy, yeah? I thought you guys started at the same time. Well, that's because I came into the business in 96. All right, so go on, Peggy. You take it from here.
So extended stay's actually older than that. When I was in college,
well, I see it going back to what, like the 60s?
Yeah, I don't go quite that far back, but in the 70s, the idea of all-suite hotels and places where people could stay for a longer time comfortably was just so exciting. The idea that you could have a kitchen in a room and that people were more place to stay for a couple of weeks to a couple of months. And that's where I started when I got out of college. It divided into extended stay and all suite, with each a different kind of purpose of trip.
Yeah, I see it going back to the 60s, 70s. One company that I know is the predecessor to AKA Hotels. Larry Corman's dad had a piece of property that was an unusual building. So it wasn't really selling well for full-time apartments, but they noticed a trend, and a lot of newly single divorced men needed a place to go, for example, and they would stay in this property in Philadelphia. And that was kind of one of the areas of germination of this. So obviously, there's no place that the hotel industry began. There's no place but the extended stay hotel industry began. But it all just kind of was bubbling up. And that 80s period was a real fertile time, wasn't it, Peggy?
Absolutely. With guest quarters and embassy suites and Hawthorne suites, and then mid-price products starting to come into the mix. And they were properties getting built all over the country. Like you said, we had a client who walked into my office one day and said, look, I'm single. My friends who used to be married are camping out on my sofa all the time. I need to get rid of them. I'm going to build a hotel.
Right. I love that idea.
In Birmingham.
That's pretty cool. Hey, it's great to have friends over, but it's just as great when they go. Mark, how did you first find yourself in the extended stay universe, and what was the state of the business at that time?
Well, in the late 1990s, Peggy and I were engaged to advise a major hotel company on whether or not they should get into the extended stay business, because it was starting to proliferate. There was a lot of buzz about it at that time, but there was no reporting data on it. It wasn't a segment of the hotel industry as defined. So as part of that assignment, we knew some of the groups that were building these products. A few of them were centered in Atlanta, where we were based. And as part of the assignment, we talked to everyone. We talked to our client and said, look, we'll call everyone and pull their reporting data together as part of the research for your assignment. And then to incentivize them to do it, we'll give them a copy of just those results. And that's exactly what happened. And we did the work. This would have been about early 1998. And then on the conference circuit over the next year, we ran into them. And they said, well, that was a really useful piece of work. Are you going to do it again? And we said, well, yeah, we can.
Yeah.
And that's really how that report started. But it was also coincident with ESA, for instance, rolling out, almost on a retail model as one of the largest proliferations of corporate-owned and operated hotels in history. So that's really where I came into it, and I've been stuck with it ever since.
Yeah, you both have been the champions of this business long before people realized that you were champions for this business. But Peggy, I want to go back again to where it all started, and one of the most influential people, and of course I'm talking about Jack DeBoer, whose legacy still lives on with a lot of the brands he created, including his final brand, Water Walk, which is currently being operated by his granddaughter, Mimi, which is so cool. Tell us a little bit about Jack and his influence on the category, and how he got people outside the industry excited about this particular sector.
So Jack was an apartment guy, and a lot of the original people in
It's out of Kansas City or something like that, right?
A lot of the original people in extended stay were apartment guys there was one out of Las Vegas, one out of New Mexico.
David Siegel Suites? Would you be referring to that person by any chance?
The guy that did the 600 and 700 unit properties.
Budget suites.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, they were in the apartment business and looking for a way, in a little bit softer apartment market, looking for a way to get higher rates, because hotels obviously have higher rates, and to tap into a different market. And so they started first converting buildings and then later building purpose-built buildings. And
right. At first, I love it. It's and this goes back to that old cliche, necessity is the mother of invention, right? You're looking at not being able to fill your building for those 12-month leases, but what if we were able to sell them for 7 months, but at a premium? Then all of a sudden you're making some real money there and not having as much wear and tear.
Exactly. And the wonderful thing about Jack is that he never stopped creating to be where the current market was. So he did a brand, and then he did another concept, and then another concept, and then another concept. And that kind of ethos, well, yes, I can do this as a business. I can start hotel systems as a business. Actually then transferred back into the chains with people like Jim Anhut, who then did multiple concepts for different brands.
And of course, check out our show with the incredible Jim Anhut right here on Icons and Experts. Please continue, Peggy.
So anyway, it's been a product that's evolved with the marketplace, and the people that did it have been extremely creative, starting really with Jack.
Yeah, he was really the original one, and colloquially, the one that extended stay industry is really associated with. We can't think of brands such as Residence Inn or Candlewood or formerly Value Place, now Woodspring, without thinking about the legacy of Jack DeBoer and how he really was the pioneer in this particular space. So back to you, Mark. You came into the industry just as instead of individual players, bigger corporations were figuring out. And you talked to us a little bit about ESA. How did things change once that Wall Street said, oh, there'd be opportunity over here?
Well, Wall Street funded the rollout of ESA. Gradually then private equity became interested in the segment. So Blackstone came into the market. I think the first one that they acquired was from Security Capital, which was Homestead Village in those days. I think that was their first one. And then they bought ESA eventually. Then you had an independent operator called David Vickers, who was based in Atlanta, who built in-town.
I know that name.
Mm-hmm. You know that. He built in-town suites up to over 100 hotels. He actually acquired some Suburbans from Choice. Yep. They had the Suburban franchise initially. He acquired some of those, rebranded them as in-towns, and then Starwood came over and bought him. Yep. Starwood also has G6 Hospitality, which is Studio 6. Mm-hmm. So private equity realized, there was some significant returns to be made on the product, and they entered the market. That also brought a different style of management to the hotels.
So Peggy, how did that style of management change and represent a maturing of the industry?
So I remember a man named Hal Wright came into my office and said, I'm doing this thing. I want you to come look at it. So we got in his car and we went and looked at this $99 a week economy extended stay hotel. And okay, to be honest, I don't normally go in those neighborhoods.
Right.
Well, normally go in those buildings. And he laid this out for me. And I thought it was phenomenal because the way the numbers worked, they were small units, they were affordable to build. They had almost no operating costs. They had, instead of having to get out there and sell units, they taught their front desks to maintain a waiting list, and they would call people when they had a unit available, and they would come move.
That's awesome.
It was just an extraordinarily profitable thing that was also a terrific service for that part of the market that needed to be working, whatever it was, construction or anything else, in another part of the country. So he rolled that concept. He was working on rolling that concept out. But when they took it to Wall Street also didn't normally go into that part of the city or normally deal with people. And they actually moved ESA up toward the kind of mid-market a bit to make it something that was a comfortable product for the public space. And then they said, this is something we can package and roll out across the country in a way that we would roll out a video chain, because that piece of it came in with George Johnson, who had just finished doing Blockbuster.
Right. Yeah, I was about to say. Funny you should say. Wayne Huizenga and George Johnson for doing that. So they started to roll it out, and then also in the late 1990s, Marriott launches the mid-tier Town Place Suites brand, and then we start to get a lot more of the mergers and stuff. And Mark, I see like mergers really setting the tone for the explosive growth that we would see later on in the extended stay industry. Is that a correct assumption, or I'm making a fool out of myself?
No, there was, there was, Choice bought Suburban, which was a corporate owned and operated, originated in Atlanta, Suburban extended stay hotels. Actually, they were called Suburban Lodge originally.
I think I remember going to one that was built for the Atlanta Olympics in 1996, but that's a long time ago.
They came in, they bought them, and then, of course, a portion of the brand, arguably half, went under the In-Town Suites banner. There were a lot of small startup extended stay brands, Studio Inn, and others that got absorbed by bigger groups. Studio Plus became ESA.
Yep.
Homestead Village became ESA. So that's what was happening. It was the larger brands, and then the hotel companies were getting more interested in it. Choice came into it, and Marriott obviously had been into it already. Yep. They developed their Town Place Suites as the mid-level brand,
and of course they purchased Residence Inn from Jack.
Yeah, and then IHG purchased Candlewood.
Yep.
And Hyatt purchased Summerfield Suites, which was another Jack DeBoer.
And then they rolled that into a different brand name. That became Hyatt House. Right. Yep. Yeah. So
while Wall Street was getting excited about this segment and how they could move it across the country, the individual developers were looking for a way to participate, to move into this product line, and they couldn't because the lenders didn't understand it. And so the traditional lenders wouldn't fund an extended stay hotel. And so a group of us got together, some of the brands, some of the lenders, some of the consultants, Chuck Pinkowski and I, and we put together some seminars to teach lenders what extended stay was and why it was a relatively low-risk way to participate in the hotel industry.
I feel like that's the time I came across you folks. There's a major conference every spring in Atlanta, and I recall you having something at the end of that every single year for a while. Of course, I might be a little foggy on the details, but I seem to recall it used to be at the end of the event, and it kept getting moved up. Towards the because as people caught on to it, it started to become more rolled into the main event. So go on, Peggy.
We started an extended stay council, an independent nonprofit, and ultimately, as happens to many things, that rolled up into the AHLA as it became more and more mainstream and became a committee of the AHLA. And then they carried forward that work of talking to lenders about the viability of the segment.
Mark, how did you see that particular era at that point as we continued to go? Did you feel like this is as big as it's going to get, or did you have the vision at the time to say, oh, we're really at the start of something that we'll look back on in 20 years and go, wow?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, we felt that it was going to continue to grow, and it has.
Yeah.
I mean, every single year, extended stay has increased its market share of supply, demand, and revenues.
And I will say, let me just say right now, Lodging Econometrics says that 1/3 of the new construction pipeline is focused in this specific category. Sorry, Mark, please continue.
No, I wouldn't be surprised at that. But if you look at a graph over the last 25 years of the change in market share of total hotel lodging for extended stay, it's only gone in one direction, up. And yes, it has.
Like a rocket.
And if you look at it, the supply of or the demand of for extended stay currently exceeds the available supply. There are actually more 7-night plus room stays in traditional hotels than there are in extended stay hotels. Now, as more are developed, some of that will move across. Not all of it, but some of it will move across. And I would be very surprised if market share doesn't continue to grow each year.
And I would like just to add, for people that are interested in developing extended stay hotels, what he's saying about extended stay hotels maybe not having as extended stays as you would think. That's because a lot of operators aren't operating them in the right way. They're treating them like transient hotels in a lot of instances, as opposed to following the rules of the extended stay model. So when you hear some of these numbers, you've got to look a little bit deeper into how this business is being done. And if you're going to be operating one of these, you must stick to that extended stay model for ultimate profitability, right, Mark?
Yes. And, it's really your price point, your extended stay occupancy in an upscale hotel, probably nationwide average 40 to 50%. The rest will be less than 7 nights or less than 5, depending how you define it. As you go down in price, that extended stay occupancy goes up. So at the economy level, you might find that 90% of your revenues are actually coming from people who are staying 7 consecutive nights or longer. And if you don't operate the model that way, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble with your returns. I mean, there are slight variations on it. South Florida, for instance, they tend to play the rate game in season. They don't get as high extended stay occupancy, but some of them have a triple-digit average rate for an economy product. Mm-hmm. So they make it work that way. But by and large, it's a sort of standardized model across the country.
Yeah, I agree. So now I'm feeling, Peggy, somewhere between 2010 and 2015, someone switched on the lights in terms of awareness of this. And all of a sudden, I felt like there was a big surge, and that first real run of everybody knowing about this seems to take place. Could you orient us a little bit about what was going on in the mid-2010s, about how like the major hotel companies and private equity really seemed to be moving in this direction?
I think the major hotel companies came in and really refined the products. They, both in the way they were operated more efficiently and in their design, so they could be delivered cost effectively. And as they rolled those out, there was a terrific response from their traditional franchise community. And at the same time, the impact of the ESA rollout was that a whole different kind of money was willing to look at these products. And when there's money available in a profitable business model, that's a pretty unbeatable combination.
That's true. I mean, that Hilton rolled out, Home 2 Suites, and they'd already had the Homewood brand, which I absolutely love. Then I think it was 2015, Choice bought Value Place and changed the name to WoodSpring Suites about a year later, I think. And at that point, that really started to change the game for a lot of companies, as they started to really look, Mark, I think, at not just having a couple of extended stay brands, but starting to focus on creating or acquiring extended stay brands for all different partitions in their portfolio of brands.
Yes. I mean, if you look at it at the time, I mean, Hilton came out with Home 2 in 2009. So they had the upscale Homewood, mid-priced Home 2. Marriott already had it in Town Place and Residence Inn. IHG already had it with Candlewood and Staybridge. And then, Choice came in with the economy segment. They already had Mainstay, more of a mid-price brand. They've now launched Everhome, mid-price.
Yep.
They still have Suburban. So, yes. And then if you come full circle, now you might find hotel companies with upscale, mid-price, and sort of economy. We shall see, because 5 new brands were launched within the last 2 years. We'll see what plays out when those hotels are open and have some performance data behind them.
That's right. Yes, Peggy.
I think part of this evolution is that people in the industry learned how to manage these products, both people in the big management companies and people in the chains. Because for a while, a developer would think, well, great, I'll build an extended stay hotel. And then they'd get somebody who'd been a Sheraton GM or something to run it, and it wouldn't work. You know, the expense side of it would just go haywire because they were applying best practices for a different kind of product. But
so it kind of looks the same, but it's a completely different product behind the scenes.
And now we have a lot of people that know how to do that well. And I think that support's made it possible for this kind of exponential growth we've been seeing.
So where are we going from here then? I mean, we've seen so much of the rollout of it. We've seen the creation of the Extended Stay Lodging Association. We're seeing more events geared towards extended stay. How do you see extended stay fitting in the future? Before we get to that, how about the evolution of how the brands caught on to dual branded properties with extended stay as a core element? Mark, how did you see that as transforming the industry before we look to the future?
Well, I mean, if you've got essentially a shared lobby, shared amenities like swimming pool, fitness center, back of the house laundry, you've got some economies of scale with your per room development costs versus doing two separate hotels. That has definitely been fashionable, shall we say, for the last few years. What it also enables you to do in smaller markets is perhaps, your 120 room prototype extended stay, there's just not enough demand for it.
Right.
So what if you do a 60 room and then 60 rooms of, a similar affiliation, but limited service hotel? And by and large, based on the number that have been developed, they've been successful.
They've been incredibly successful. I think it really meets the needs for a lot of communities and developers because of the combined services and the opportunity to tap into two distinct revenue drivers. So you don't have to be 100% good at one. You can be like 60, 70% good on both of them, and you're going to be filling up that property in a meaningful way every single night. Well, a quick note for our audience out there, the way these dual brands came together is, I think, a little bit unexpectedly. It would start with a developer would have two different types of properties. Then that developer would put two different types of properties on the same piece of land in the same parking lot. Then they said, oh, well, what if we put them together? And they saved the wall, and they would have a lot of distinct elements. Then they became totally blended type of properties. And I think that is a real winning combination for both urban and suburban markets. So, Mark, back to you for a second on the future. Where are we? Are we at the beginning of all of this, or should we just all pack up our bags and go home? Where do you think we're at?
No, if you like, it's a new beginning, with 5 new brands coming out, and there'll be some alignment and jockeying for position, I think, over the next few years. You may see some mergers, you may see some acquisitions of brands by one of the bigger hotel companies in a rush to get scale. But the outlook, I think, will be more rapid increases in revenue, certainly in relative terms, than the overall hotel industry.
Yeah, I agree. Peggy, how do you see it?
I think one of the things that happened with extended stay during COVID is a refocus on, hey, wait a minute, this is a concept that really has a place and an ability to hold on to that, which makes it work. Limited front desk, limited housekeeping, less marketing necessary. All the efficiencies suddenly became much more accepted and actually desirable. And at the same time, from the perspective of companies that are trying to manage multiple kinds of brands, including extended stay and traditional, we got a whole new kind of reporting available to us where the operators can now look at a Calibri Labs and see how much extended stay is in each of their own products. And that helps them better promote the advantages of extended stay in one building and manage the transient side better in another building. So, I think we have management resources now that we just never had before. And I think that's going to strengthen the segment.
Yeah, Mark, how do you see that?
I do. Well, Equilibrium Labs, I believe, came out in 2012. And when Mark Lamano sat with me in Atlanta at the Hunter Investment Conference and told me what he got, my eyes lit up.
Yeah.
And we've been using it extensively. It's very, very good to measure average length of stay, the distribution of extended stay room nights by rate, by length of stay. Very, very useful information benchmarking. And also, if you're looking into a market and you think there might be extended stay demand in it before you build your extended stay hotel, buy one of those reports. It will show you if it's there and how much of it there is and what price they're paying. That never existed before 2012.
Yeah. And now information is here to help you make all these great decisions. Peggy, Mark, thank you so much for this walk down extended stay history. I found this absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you for watching. Now, listen, one of the most essential things that you could do is get involved with the Extended Stay Lodging Association. Learn more about them at ESLA.org. ESLA.org. I also want to thank them for supporting this show and helping all of us learn more about extended stay. What a fun history lesson that was. We'll see you next time right back here on another episode of ESLA's Icons and Experts.